see you next time. Bye-bye. Shouldn't do that. So this is only for recording for the future, or for any audience who's left watching the videos, or even just we started, so I don't know. Anyway, so what I wanted to talk about is why did I started doing these videos, really? Because I just love computers. I did love them from very early on, and I thought that, having these many things around me, it's about 80 plus computers we have here in this room. I thought that, it's a great thing to have. It's fun to have. I really enjoy having them around, opening up, playing them, cleaning them, and then doing all these. And, well, there are two things here. One is I wanted to remember these and have these, when I will be old enough in a couple of decades to, simply be over with these lot, So it's one way is an archive for myself. And on the other hand, I thought that there are many people out there who are interested in these topics, so I could share them with those people. Whether this is a successful YouTube channel in the future, or whenever you're watching this, or was in the past, or is now, I don't know. And I don't even really want to know, if I'm honest, at this point. So I only shoot 2 videos at this point. I worked on an iMac G4 and the PC XT, which is not completed yet. There are a few issues I still need to work on in the one of the short, in the short future, near future, when the parts arrive for it. So, yeah, this is more of a fun project for me to work on these things, have a bit of an escape from the day-to-day, everything. Just work on these things, remember old stuff. So when I worked on the XT, I actually made a mistake. I don't know if you've seen that video yet or not, but so when I plugged in the cable for the floppy drive, I accidentally plugged in the drive B end of the cable. So if you know, or maybe you don't, but never mind. So the floppy cable has 3 ports. One of them is to the motherboard or the card. And then there's one for floppy A and floppy B, or drive A, drive B. And there's a twist in the cable. So if you would check the cable, then you would see, and maybe I will put in a picture here. So when you investigate it, you can see that there is, after the first connector, then there's a cut, and then they twist the cable and then carry on connecting it to the end. And that's drive 0, right? Or, yeah, or it should be. Or am I messing this up again? Yeah, no, that should be drive 0, yes. So, and the other one is not. And I thought that it's the other way around. So I plugged in the cable incorrectly and let the other hanging bit just to be there because, that's not important. And the XT didn't boot. But annoyingly, I just remembered these things. So I used to work with old computers, and then old computers of all age back in time. And it was fun to remember those stories, actually, then when people came to us and me and then said that, I have this computer, could you please fix it? And then they brought it over and I checked it, and then it turned out, having a faulty hard drive, and then you try to do everything to, separate out the bad sectors, and then try to make it work still, and then more likely than not, it usually these attempts failed because the faulty hard drive had a reason to become faulty. And yes, sometimes you can have a faulty disk. I mean, this is about the old spinny disks, right? It's not SSD time. So if you kicked the drive while it was running, you could have a faulty sector, like a physical damage on the disk. But usually it wasn't that. Usually the motor drive had an issue, or the head positioning had some issue, or anything between, electrical and physical problems. So more often than not, those things couldn't be fixed. So the solution for that was to replace the hard drive. And as we went ahead in time, it was more and more difficult to find matching or suitable hard drives, because BIOSes back then had the limitations what they can handle: size and number of sectors and number of heads and all the interesting bits about the old spinny disks. And so it just wasn't an easy case to find, I will get another drive and then just put it in, because as time passed, you had more and more chance to buy something which is no longer supported by the hardware or the remaining hardware. So yeah, that's cool. Working on the iMac, I don't know, you can see it, probably you can't. I remembered actually when I came to this country, the UK, and I left a well-paid job in Hungary, came to here, and we rented a room, me and my wife. And then the landlady had an iMac G4, similar to this one, probably a smaller or an earlier version. And it was interesting to see that thing. I never seen one before. It's not because, back in Hungary we didn't have one. It's just I never met one in my life, really. So it was an interesting experience, but it was slow as hell. Seriously, everything was a pain to do on that. And so when I picked this one up and I started working on it, I expected the same sort of, experience, but it turned out that this one isn't that slow and isn't that bad. So, but again, and that was about 10 years ago when I moved to the country. So just about a decade ago, I had an experience with an iMac G4, and now I have my own. Again, it's a fairly pointless. It's only a collectible thing now, but yeah. So, and this is just the first two videos, and there are many more here. So we've got Atari 800s, we've got Nintendos, Atari Jaguar, all the different versions of Sinclairs. More Ataris, more Apples. And all of them are carrying some sort of story for me. There was the ZX Spectrum. I wanted one when I was a kid, or more like a teenager. So I wanted to have one. I wanted to try one. I never had the chance because when I was a teenager, these things weren't available in Hungary, or, I didn't know anyone had one. So I couldn't even, just go to a friend and try it out there. I've seen an Enterprise back then and I wanted one. Now I have one. My very first computer experience was a Commodore PET. And that's very interesting because I was about 5 years old and been at nursery. And opposite of our building, there was a university campus thing, or one of the buildings. And one day someone thought that why not bring those kids over, us from nursery, and show them the future. And so they did. So they came over. I don't know who made the decision or who arranged it. I've been only 5 years old at that time, so I was completely unaware of this situation. But it was interesting because we walked across the street and they went into this huge building, and then they, guided us into a room which was full of these computers, Commodore PETs. And it was really cool to see these things, like, you've got these clicky things, and then there's a TV on the top, like monitor, but to a 5 years old, never met anything like that. That was a TV. And so they showed it us, and then, they make us sit down, and then they loaded some stuff, Space Invaders, actually, for me. And that was the very first thing I had an experience with a computer, Space Invaders, and or, an appropriate clone. And I loved it. The fact that you can, influence what's happening on the screen, on, what happens on TV. You can change that. You can modify that. You're no longer a passive viewer. You can, control it by using the keys. And at that point, I knew I want to work with these things, whatever is this, because, every kid has that dream that, if you grow up, you want to be a doctor, you want to be a lorry driver or a train driver, whatever really is. I always wanted to, drive those big engines, the trains, locomotives, and then that was my dream. But then that has been pushed away almost immediately when I fall in love with the computers. So I collected loads of computers back then, and old hardware like the 286, 386. Actually, I did have an XT and a PC Junior motherboard as well, and a few other stuff. But then, as life moved around and these things dipped in value to nothing, I needed to actually part with them. So most of them ended in a bin. Some parts has been, given to people who are interested in working with these kind of things, still fixing them. So effectively for years, I had 0 parts or 0 of these relics, if I may say. And so I came to the UK, we settled down, got a house and all these kind of things. And then it just came back that I wanted my old computer. So I talked about lengths, about my very first Commodore, because I've been a developer. So I did stuck with the IT profession. So as much as it matters, my 5-year-old should be happy and satisfied with me, because I am, and I was working with these things. As I decided back then, playing that Space Invader clone. And so I thought that, I'm on this track. And then had a colleague, a friend, and we worked together. And then we discussed the computer's efficiency, and then how you write your code is being efficient, inefficient, and then how the current hardware actually spoils us developers, that we're no longer forced to think about memory, constraints or actually CPU cycles and anything like that. And we discussed for quite a long that, why am I obsessed with these things to force the code to be efficient and fast, and then think about what resources you are using. Because I've got my very first experiences with computers, limited memory, limited hardware, CPU cycle, not cycles, well, yeah, whatever cycles, but speed, CPU speed, right? And if you wanted to make something to look half decent, you needed to think around the code and try to make it more efficient. And then suddenly you found yourself, you're running out of memory, so you need to make things smaller, rewrite it. And also, I did have a Commodore 16, with all its limitations, but I never had anything where you store your programs once you wrote it. So not a data set, not a disk drive, nothing, so at the end of the day, you worked on your code hard, and then it's time to go bad. So you turn it off and it's gone, right? So you lost it all. So what now? So you need to rewrite it. And then, but who wants to write 3,000 lines every single time? So you start optimizing your code. And then, so those things where it started from. And then these conversations we had with the guys sparked my desire, if I may say, to have one of these computers again for old time's sake. And then, one thing follows the other, and there are 80 computers here in various conditions. I know there is a luggable compact portable tool there, which needs to be fixed because I think there's a power supply issue. I've got an Apple IIgs has a power supply issue. This thing needs to be retrobrighted and then also, fixed. The keyboard is stuck. One of the pads having memory issues here. So loads of things. And then I just thought that I want to have these things as, like a photo of your, life events to look back, when you are older a bit. And then just think that, I remember that. And I just wanted to have that feeling. And obviously I noticed that, there was the internet, and then there are other people doing similar stuff. Like one of my favorites, like the 8-bit guy, he's doing loads of these videos. And I was following, and I'm following him since years, and been a Patreon to it. I'm a Patreon on his account. So yeah, I like to do that. And then I liked watching it. So I thought that, why not share if there is, some people interested out there? Why not? So what's the harm, right? Maybe I will get some not so lovely comments, but at the end of the day, I do have the videos for myself. When I reach the point, it's like, yeah. Funny I should say that, by the way, because I think with lots of people on the planet, we can share the same feeling. I do hate to listen to my own voice and see myself on the screen. So yeah, it's a bit of a mixed feelings, right? But yeah, anyway, so that's about it, really. I just wanted to tell you that this is the reason I started, or this was the reason I started. Again, depends when you watch it or see this video. So yeah, and I'm happy with these things around me. And, I'm still looking for stuff to buy because I can't really stop. And my wife isn't really happy about that. But yeah, it's just great fun to have these things, hunt these things down, collect them and then turn them on and then make them, a beautiful, like an original again, just like, other people doing out there, Adrian, 8-bit guy, LGR, and so on. You can name them. And it's just great. And, I will never be as good as they are. Mainly language as well. I mean, you surely notice that, English is not my first and native language, and I'm making loads of mistakes, and pronunciation isn't that great, and accent is a bit odd. Some people like it. Some people call it like an exotic accent, and then, they said they could listen to it for hours. I promise I won't make this an hour-long video. But yeah, so those are the great ones. I'm just doing it for my own fun, and I'm sure they did the same thing. So they had the same thing in their mind when they started, and I think that's probably their key to success. Yeah, whether this channel will be a success, or was a success, or is a success, I have no idea. But I just want to work with these things. Plus, I have a few things I want to really try and work on it somehow. Fix boxes, if you can see the box there, and then I've got a few beaten up boxes, and I have a few ideas how we could make them, retro-bright the boxes, if that makes sense. But we will see that, or you will see that. Anyway, that's me. So, thanks for watching, and see you next time. Bye.